Welcome to Bootstrap Businessmen, the podcast focused on developing the entrepreneur within on a shoestring budget. And I am your host, #1 best-selling fitness author, Dale L. Roberts, and I'm joined by my co-host, the Midwest best, Kevin S. Allen.
Hey, man, how we doing tonight, Dale? How you feeling?
Fantastic, feeling great as usual, of course.
All right, man, same here. Hey, I just wanted to throw a little thing in here. Hey, everybody that's listening, please support the show by simply shopping at Amazon.com. We have a link provided in our show notes. All you got to do is bookmark that in your browser. Anytime you go to shop at Amazon, just click on that. Basically, a small percentage gets kicked back to us. Doesn't cost you any more money. That small percentage helps cover the cost of our show, and overhead. So if you want to keep hearing the awesome, great content and some of the great guests and stuff that we got coming to you, just go in, bookmark that, use that link.
Excellent. Yeah. And hey, remember, if you like the show, then show us some love. Click the follow button on our site at show.bootstrapbusinessmen.com, Stitcher, or iTunes. And the best part is you won't miss out on a single episode if you're following us. And should we decide to have a special pop-up show with exclusive time-sensitive promotions, then you'll know all about it.
Which we've had what, at least 3 or 4 probably over the last few weeks here. Yeah. Pop-up episodes. We're giving away a lot of great books, some audio books. Man, people got to follow.
That's absolutely true. All right. Hey, today's special guest with Bootstrap Businessmen is none other than Scott J. Marshall II. My boy, I tell you what, this guy, he actually has his own YouTube channel. If you haven't checked it out before, doing it better. He puts out really good inspirational, motivational type things that get your head screwed on straight. And also, I am very proud of the fact that I've actually kind of helped him in his self-publishing business. And this man, he's fucking run with it. So, Scott, my boy, say something.
How's it going, Dale? How's it going, Kevin? How are you guys?
Good, man. How are you doing tonight?
I'm doing excellent.
Good stuff. So, Scott, I'm going to share it with everybody here on the YouTube if they're watching it, the internet. I'm going to share
interwebs.
Yeah.
The high-speed Googles.
I don't use the emails. For those that are listening on the YouTube and those that possibly are listening over SoundCloud, iTunes, everything else between, today is actually kind of an experiment. We were using Blog Talk Radio up till yesterday. And we got a hold of Scott, and I thought, what better way we could be able to connect is get a good friend in here, and we can have a good friendly conversation about business. So obviously, we're going to still interview you and put you on the spot and ask uncomfortable questions, and hopefully you're game for that.
Oh, I'm an open book. I'd be a liar if I wasn't an open book, because I tell everybody to just be an open book. So I may have just stepped on my own foot there. May have just shot myself in the foot and opened a door I don't want to open, but we'll get through this.
My friend, Kevin, dude, start us off, man. This is so much fun. I get to actually look at you, and we won't have as much interruptions between each other because I can see that you're getting ready to talk, or you can see I'm getting ready to talk.
Yeah, and it's really kind of cool, man, because I actually put clothes on tonight. So we're, it's good times. But Scott, man, dude, I gotta be honest with you. I've read your gluten-free cookbook. We're actually using a couple of the recipes and stuff. My wife is vegetarian.
Awesome.
Yeah, I still eat chicken. I'm not fully converted yet, so. But yeah, no, we've been using a couple of the recipes, man. And I have to ask, where truly did that inspiration come from for that book?
The inspiration from that book came from a couple of different places. I did write a book before that about dog foods. I'm a very big dog person. I've got 2 of them. You may hear them shuffling around in the background in their kennels during the interview. But I wrote that book out and realized that isn't where I wanted to go with publishing, just because there was so much noise about it. Not because I was afraid of the saturation and the competition or anything like that, but I felt like dogs were almost too personal for me to write about because I feel so strongly about them in so many points that I didn't want to get. I don't even know how to explain it, but it just wasn't right for me. So then I started thinking along the lines of, okay, what else do I know really, really well? What have I been living? What can I actually bring to people's table and actually be an authority on, and not just be spouting a bunch of bullshit and, you know, oh, I went and spent 5 minutes searching Google for it, and now I'm a master and I can teach everybody about it. And I spent a long time mulling it over, and it just hit me one day, like it smacked me across the face. Like, what do you mean, what do you know? You've been living a gluten-free lifestyle for the past, what is it now, 8 years. So, yeah, and little over the last year, I've lost about 60 pounds, and the two definitely intermingled. And so that's where the inspiration ultimately came from, was figuring out what it was that I could actually write about, something that I could bring to the table and be an authority on, and actually continuously produce content about, and not just put out one book and be, okay, well, now what am I doing? Because that was all I had. That was all the information I had on this subject, and one book on gluten-free fitness is definitely not the wealth of the knowledge that I'm holding in the gluten-free world.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good read, and actually I took a lot of time, and I sat down with Scott and worked out gluten-free fitness. So you guys get a chance, go into our Amazon link in the description below, and make sure that you go over, look up gluten-free fitness with my boy Scott J. Marshall. But even though you cover it in the book, tell me, what was it that you found? How did you find out that you had an aversion to gluten?
It was actually a fairly extreme reaction. It was gluten up until this point I'm about to bring up was like a main staple in my diet. Like a lot of people in the United States and everywhere else around the world, I was pretty much meat and potatoes except for meat and bread kind of guy. When I went to Thanksgiving dinner, I got 6 rolls and a plate of turkey, and like that was it. And so one night, and I can tell you the day and the time. It was March 3rd of 2008. I was laying at my buddy's couch. We were about to go to Alaska for our 3rd year and do some seasonal work, and we were flying out the next morning, and it was like someone walked up to the couch and stabbed me in the gut. I mean, it was like nothing that I've ever felt before, and I talk about it actually a little bit in Gluten-Free Fitness, more so in my next book about label reading that's coming out, a little more detail. But I mean, it was brutal. It was just out of nowhere, going like borderline, do I need to go to the hospital kind of thing. And eventually it tapered off and went away in a couple of hours, but I spent the next several months wondering, why am I feeling like crap all the time? I'm always tired. It doesn't feel like I'm ever getting energy from my food after I eat. I started losing weight, and not in a good way. They're kind of like, dude, are you okay? Because you're kind of looking Skeletor on me. And eventually, I kind of hooked up with a buddy that had gone up there with me, and it just clicked with us one day as we were talking that some of the symptoms that he was describing about how, oh, I actually accidentally had wheat this one time, gluten this one time, and I felt like such and such. I went, dude, we need to talk about this like right now. So we started switching back information, and we ended up actually getting online and looking at a list of gluten intolerance / celiac, because there's a difference. Gluten intolerance / celiac reactions to gluten, and I had 18 out of 20 of them. The only 2 that I didn't have were sensitive breasts and a change in my menstrual cycle. So it was a pretty clear indicator.
That would have been bad if you would have discovered at one time that, you know, you're gluten insensitive and as well as a woman. So congratulations that you're not a woman. I'm sure you're relieved, and I'm sure your wife is relieved.
She is, and I am as well. Yeah, that would have been a whole other discovery. There would have been all kinds of growths to discuss because there were things where there shouldn't be, and yeah, that would have been a whole other deal.
Oh my God, hilarious! Like spending your whole life, and all of a sudden you wake up, and you're like, what?
All right, cool.
So
go ahead, continue on, Scott. I did interrupt you on the whole woman thing there.
No, I actually, that's one of my, and it was originally it was kind of a painful topic because it's like, God damn, I can't eat anything now. This is going to be a hard thing, but now that it's just part of my life, I love telling that story because I love that reaction and people just losing their shit and just going, oh my God, that was so damn funny. Because it wasn't for me at the time. It was going, oh my God, but now it's hilarious. Mm-hmm. But after that point, I figured out what was going on. I started switching up my diet, and it was like, I mean, an immediate overnight change. The bloating stopped in my stomach, the constipation, the weight loss went away. I mean, my energy levels came back. It was just an almost overnight transition. It did take, I don't want anybody that's gluten-free listening to this going, oh, I can change overnight and everything's going to be fine. It was a several-week process because that stuff sticks with you. It takes a significant period of time for the cilia within your intestines that are damaged by coming in contact with the gluten to come back and grow again. So it's not an overnight deal. But that was how I figured it out, and it was not an easy thing to deal with. It was not an easy thing to transition into because I was an extremely, extremely picky eater on top of this now gluten intolerance to deal with. So it was a tough transition.
Very good. Yeah, Kevin, you were getting ready to say a question. Unfortunately, I interrupted you to interrupt Scott. So I like interrupting. That's my thing.
No, actually, I was just, he finished what I was kind of looking for there. Dude, great story, and, thankfully that you found that out. And you said that, how long has this been now? 8 years?
That was 2008 when it originally surfaced, and then it was towards August, September time, close to leaving, because it's only about a 5-month seasonal job, and so towards the end of leaving is when I started to actually figure it out, change my diet, and actually start to feel better.
Okay, so basically you have 8 years of experience with this. So when you produce this book, and you said that you're an authority, that's honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I was talking to my buddy Jordan Miller. He's a fitness writer as well, and he was talking about how it is borderline offensive for people that don't have experience in a certain topic. Like Dale is obviously extremely experienced in the fitness world. You are obviously extremely experienced in business. For somebody to come out and write a fitness book because they've been working out for 3 months or something like that. And so for me, when I was searching for that topic, I knew that it had to be something that not just like I could act like I was an authority on, but that I actually was. And if somebody wanted to sit down and talk like this, somebody wanted to sit down and talk for an hour straight about it, that I wouldn't be out of stuff to say in 10 minutes because that's all that I researched on Google. And so I've done the gluten-free thing the right way, the okay way. I've done it the super healthy way, like I'm doing it now, and I've done it the what the fuck are you doing way. And they're all a completely different animal, and I only recommend the healthy way to do it because the latter options are not good. They're not good.
Yeah, it really is, and I would love to take the time to actually go through what that means, but if anybody's listening or watching, do yourself a favor, just go grab Gluten-Free Fitness. It is a good read, very brief. It's not like it's going to eat up a lot of your time. He's got a handful of great recipes in there, but it's very insightful. I took the time to actually give him some criticisms, and he was able to take the ball and run with it. So
much appreciated.
Yeah, and I much appreciated that you actually were receptive to it, because I mean, getting edited, it's like a swift kick to the balls, but you know that it's going to make your balls tougher and stronger in the long run.
That's great.
So in any event, Jordan Miller. If anybody's, that's a good one. Go find Jordan. He's actually got his own YouTube channel. The guy's tremendous, fucking jacked. I mean, damn, that kid's in good shape. But yeah, he brings up a good point, and why is it that people want to make a living out of or make money from something that they're not good at? Can you be able to tell me why someone would do that, Scott?
I think that the only reason that somebody would want to do that is because they don't have any passion in their lives. They don't have anything that they're really passionate about except for wanting to succeed no matter what it takes, which isn't necessarily by itself isn't a bad thing, but when you're succeeding just to make money, in my personal opinion, if making money is your only goal, then it means that somewhere deep down that you're using it as a tool to be better than everybody else around you. Because if money is your only goal and your only passion, then then you've got a pretty sad, empty life. And you're going to pick whatever's on the table that's going to make you that money.
Mm.
Continually chasing that dollar is not going to make you happy, and Lord knows that I've fallen prey to that one many times. And I can't sit here and claim perfection by any stretch. There are some things that I'm good at, and sometimes there's every now and then I get the shiny object syndrome, and I get a little distracted.
I think we all get that.
Nobody's worse than me with the shiny objects. I think Dale can attest to that. So when we're talking, but no, you're absolutely right, Scott. When you're continually chasing the dollar, A, you're never really gonna achieve what you're looking for, and B, you're always gonna be miserable. So you're right. You know, you got to do something that you have some passion about, man, and I love hearing that. And you said you had a couple dogs that you're passionate about. What kind of dogs do you have?
I have 2 white German Shepherds, and I only say the white part because people don't. They're not a separate breed. They're not, and people ask me that when I say the white part. But I only say the white part because people are so used to the classic, brown and black saddle cop dog, and they're actually brothers from the same parents, from the same breeder. So they are. It is amazing to see the outcomes of genetics when you take 2 of the exact same 2 people, or not 2 people, but 2 dogs that produce so many different results, because they are in so many ways exactly alike, and in so many ways I would never expect them to have come from even the same country, maybe. I mean, they are so similar and so different, but I love them to death, even though sometimes it's a good thing that I can legally put them in a metal box and just leave them there and not get arrested, because I just don't know what I would do if I could.
Nice. So, I mean, you have a book out about dog food, but then the gluten-free. I mean, 2 subjects that you carry some passion about. So, my next question: living a passion-filled life, right? Why did you choose to be an entrepreneur?
I chose to be an entrepreneur, honestly, because I started thinking about, after I started my weight loss and fitness journey, I started thinking about what I actually wanted life to look like. And that came about because, as you're taking control of your life, so to speak, with your diet, your exercise routine, your mental outlook, everything else that was on the table, you start thinking big picture, because you're looking at all these things growing and getting better, and you can't help but think about everything else and how everything else can get better too. And so I started thinking about what would everything look like if it was just, perfect. If I got to do exactly what it was that I wanted to do, not be a total, run away into the woods and be a dirty hippie and never do anything ever, even though in some ways that would be awesome. But what it came down to for me was being able to accomplish all of my goals at the same time, which was being fulfilled, being successful in the manner of feeling like I was contributing something and having a good sense of self-worth, as well as doing all the other things that people think about on a more normal level, like having a family, having a wife, having the kids, all that kind of stuff. And I never wanted to have the life where someone else is raising my kids, because so many people out there nowadays have 2 full-time jobs and then some, but they've got 4 kids and see them anywhere from like 1 to 4 hours a day, and they're distracted the entire time because they're doing something else. So what I wanted to do is be able to wake up. I wanted to be able to go to the gym as soon as I woke up and get that out of the way, because I love it and it energizes me and gets me ready for the day. Be able to come home and put in a couple of hours of work, or send the kids off to school and then put in a couple of hours of work and be able to spend the rest of the time with my kids and my wife, my dogs, the people I care about, and the things that I care about. And the only way that I was going to be able to do that was to be an entrepreneur. I wasn't going to be able to do that spending 8+ hours a day, 5 days a week, plus working, doing something else. It just wasn't going to happen. It's not the reality. It doesn't work.
Sure. Well, I mean, you'd be spending that 8 to 10 hours a day building somebody else's dream, or spending that 8 to 10 hours a day building yours.
Exactly.
This is really cool. I think that this is definitely something people can learn from. And you know, maybe you're in a situation where you have 4 children. Scott doesn't mean to discourage you and say that you can't do the same thing that he's doing. So maybe if I could just take a couple steps back, let's talk a little bit about self-publishing. And I want to kind of stretch out just a little bit more, Kevin. So hopefully you can allow me one more question here before you take over. So self-publishing, how much have you invested in it as far as time, energy, and money-wise? Especially money, because we're speaking to an audience of people that are trying to scrimp their money by and possibly, you know, bootstrap with little to no money when they're starting their businesses. So self-publishing, how much does it cost? Time, energy, money.
Time and energy, I would say. Well, I'll address each one individually because they're all different animals. Energy-wise, a lot, especially on the willpower side of things. I put a video out the other day about willpower, and I think that people need to understand that it is an exhaustible resource and that they do need to use it wisely. And I got a big slap in the face, kick in the balls, as Dale would say, about how that shit works. Because in the beginning, before I ever hooked up with Dale and started learning from him, it was that I was doing everything at the end of the day. It was the very last thing that I was doing, and it was running me into the dirt. And I felt like I hated it because it's like, oh, well, I've got this far, so I need to finish. But it takes a lot of energy to do it. And I don't mean to discourage anybody and say that, like your guest previously, Ellie, was talking about, you don't need to, you know, run your face into the dirt, put your nose to the grindstone 24 hours a day to get it done. But you've got to be willing to work, because there are going to be a couple and then some nights where you're sitting there at the computer, rubbing your eyes, going, do I really have to type more? Do I really have to finish this landing page? But it's satisfying. And I think that the energy that you gain on the back end, as far as seeing how much you're capable of and how much you can accomplish when you do expend that energy, is well worth it. So energy-wise, I spent a lot, but I did it as wisely as I could without sacrificing performing well at my current 9-to-5 job, without losing the time in the relationship that I had spent building with my wife. You've got to do it wisely. If you're trying to build a business and be an entrepreneur and you're trying to spend that energy wisely, but everything else starts to fall down around you, you're just going to spend all that same energy trying to keep those things, or trying to build those things back up, and then your entrepreneur business is going to suffer. You've got to find a way to smartly allocate your willpower and your energy across those things. So there's the very not short answer for energy.
That's awesome, energy. So what about you know, time? Seems like, you know, how much are you allocating towards self-publishing on a daily or weekly basis?
On a daily basis would probably be the easiest way to describe it, because I do occasionally make sure that I get some work in on Saturday mornings. But I have it pretty, as somebody that coaches on organization and time management, it would be pretty hypocritical for me to not be able to tell you exactly what my day looks like, because I do it on purpose. So I generally wake up in the morning at anywhere between 4 and 5 a.m. and I do something. It's usually anywhere from half of an hour to an hour, depending on when I get up, before I start getting some 9-to-5 work prep and then go into the gym work done. So there's about an hour, we'll say, there. And then usually throughout the day, mostly on my lunch period, I will spend more time. A lot of the time it's doing social media presence stuff. So there's another about half an hour. And in the evening time, it's anywhere from an hour up to 3 hours. It just depends on what the day looks like and everything else. So on an average day, we're looking at anything between 2.5 to 5 hours. And I know that for some people, they're going to be going, dude, like I don't have 5 hours. But I don't think that you need it. I think that if you can understand that your progress will come at the rate that you put the work in, and just be okay with an hour being a step forward, even if it's not 5 steps forward, that's still a step forward. And that's something that I struggled with for a long time, was being like, oh, I didn't spend 5 hours doing this thing today, so I suck at life and I fail. But I think that that's one important thing, is people need to spend whatever time that they have, if that's 5 minutes, half an hour, and dedicate it and focus 100% to that. Turn your phone off, close all your other tabs. And if it's publishing and you're writing, then write. No Facebook tab, don't answer your phone calls unless somebody's dying. I mean, just focus on it. So I spend anywhere from 2.5 to 5 hours a day on publishing business and other business right now.
Nice, nice. And it's not too bad. I think you bring up a great point in the fact that, you know, consistency is key. My good buddy Dave Koziel said that on one of our previous podcasts. You know, consistency is key. I think Bruce Lee once said that he doesn't fear the man that has practiced 10,000 kicks on one time, but he more fears the man that practices one kick a day for 10,000 days straight. So I paraphrase it, you know, but, you know, consistency is key. You know, even if it's 10 minutes per day or 2.5 hours or more, you're never going to get good at something if you just sporadically do it. And I think that's, you know, you're to be commended on something like that. So now, monetary-wise, this is my last question before I send it back off over to Kevin. What kind of investment are you having to spend on self-publishing, and specifically where at and how much on a monthly basis can a person expect to invest as far as money goes in self-publishing?
One of the things that during my fitness journey, my journey over the last year that we'll call it, one of the things that I've done is also improved mine and my wife's financial state with her finishing school and starting working, and so it's made me more conscious about money. And I have tried to be very bootstrap about everything it is that I'm doing. So every time that I'm making an expense when it comes to publishing is very well thought out, and it's very, do I need to spend this money? And if I spend this money, is it going to be worth, is the income, and I'm not talking monetary, but is the income, is the return on investment going to be worth what I'm going to spend on it? So if I had to say on average per month, definitely under $50, 100% under $50. I don't think that there's ever a month where I have spent more than $50, and that's including paying for an amazing tool that I know that lots of people utilize, and it's K-Book Promotions, and it costs me $27 a month, and that's my biggest publishing expense. But I spend that money because of the time that it saves me. And I think that one thing that entrepreneurs immediately figure out is how valuable that their time really is. Could you do this thing that you could pay a VA $5 to do for 3 hours? Is that worth the 3 hours it's going to cost you, or would you rather spend the $5? And I haven't ever used VAs because I've been very bootstrap about it. I'm just trying to communicate the fact of how important that your time is. And a tool like K-Book helps me save time, and going back to the energy thing, saves my willpower. If I can click a button and figure out these things that it would take me an hour to research on Amazon myself, or submit to 20, 30, whatever websites that would take me 2 hours by myself, then bet your ass that I'll pay $27 a month for it, because it's going to save me time, it's going to save me energy, and ultimately it's going to produce more income and more revenue.
Brilliant, brilliant. Kevin, in your experience, have you ever dealt with something like a tool that has maximized the most out of your time?
Yeah, man. I mean, excuse me. My throat's been a little weird this weather back and forth, so you have to excuse me. Honestly, it's going to be lead pages. Lead pages is a good one. You know, you can set up an advertisement, put your content out there one time, set it up with an autoresponder or email service, so you don't have to be there in front of this all the time. So, Scott, I definitely commend you on that. And one of the things, man, being an entrepreneur, time is your most valuable resource. I don't care, you know, if you got to throw a little bit of money at it, that's fine. But if it takes more of your time away, then, you know, doing it, or that $5, like what you said, oh man, you absolutely got to spend it. So great on that. K-Book Promotions. You said it submits to how many websites?
Oh, I can't remember right off the top of my head, but it's something like 30 plus, something like that, pretty close. It's I'm just going to leave my answer at that because I'm going to muck it up if I think about it too much harder. But it's something like that. It's definitely the time that it takes for me to fill out the information, the couple of fields of what it's going to have to submit compared to, let me put it this way. It would take me longer to open up the tabs. If I had every one of the URLs sitting in front of me and all I had to do was click them, it would take me longer to click through each URL and pull them up. Not fill them out, just click the URLs and pull them up than it would for me to fill in the fields and information and hit go.
Okay.
And to me, that's a serious return on investment.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's saving your time, and it's a little bit of money. Going back a little bit, you know, I loved how you put into perspective if you have 5 minutes, if you have 30 minutes, if you have 5 hours. Because one of the biggest things that you talk to somebody about, they have an idea, and they want to change their life, get away from a 9 to 5, whatever the situation is. But the biggest thing that they always say is that there's not enough time. They don't have time. But they can tell you what's been on television every night of the week. You know what I mean? So how do you feel about that? Now, don't get me wrong. I love to watch movies. You know, occasionally I'll pop in a movie with the wife and stuff. You know what I mean? You gotta unplug a little bit. But I mean, how do you balance that? Say unplugging from everything, right? And still fitting those extra 5 hours into your day.
Well, first off, I think that that's an excellent point, and I remember you talking about that in one of the previous, actually may have been one of the first 3 Bootstrap Businessmen podcasts about somebody talking to you about that and you questioning them on what had happened with Leo at the Oscars, and they told you that they'd watched the whole 3-hour segment. And you were like, so you don't have time, huh? So I think it's a very good point, but I think that you do need to unplug. I think that it is very important because, in my personal opinion, if you breach the line between passionate and obsessed, whatever it is that you just crossed the line into, eventually you're going to hate it. You're going to hate it. If you are somebody that really, really loves fitness, let's say, and one night you're just like, I'm going to work out 7 days a week, and I'm going to do it for an hour and a half every day, I don't care if you're freaking Arnold Schwarzenegger. Eventually, there's going to be a day where you wake up and the idea of going to the gym and picking up a weight is just going to make you want to vomit. So I think that you need to unplug, and when it comes to the guilt factor of, oh, I didn't spend 5 hours today, I think that it comes back to a concept that I learned in an amazing book that I think that everybody should read. It should be like planetary mandatory reading that I've read probably 7 times, and that's Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And it's that you shouldn't be afraid of doing things, but you need to be willing to really and truly accept the consequences of the things that you do. So if you're going to have taking an example from the book, if you're going to have a cigar and you're going to have a drink of whiskey, then that's totally chill. But you need to understand what the consequences and things that are going to happen because of that are, and accept them. So if you can put in the right, and that's why I believe so much in scheduling and actually having a set amount of time for everything, not necessarily an amount of time, but a set time for everything, because it gets rid of the guilt factor. If you can not think about the fact that I'm not working on publishing because you're spending an hour watching TV with your wife or something, but you know that you have that time allocated tomorrow and the next day and the next day, then you don't think about it, because you know that publishing or whatever it is that your business is going to get worked on, and so you can enjoy what you're doing now. So it comes down to setting a proper schedule, being dedicated to all the things that are important to you in your life, and like my friend Joe Girard said, respect your calendar. When you schedule these things, the time with your wife, the time with your family, your business, follow them, because if you don't, you're going to start feeling the pain, because then the guilt comes in. Then you start feeling bad about not putting enough time in with your wife, with your kids, with your business. You need to schedule out the proper amount of time. You need to execute on them, and then that's it. You don't need to make it more complicated than that. You just need to figure out what's important, how much time to put in, and stick to it.
Dude, what the fuck, man? Why are you putting out gluten-free books? You need to
Yeah, I think we just found another niche for you.
Yeah, exactly, man. I'm telling you what, man. You need to start following some Kevin Cruz, man. That's some good shit, dude. I mean, you know, okay, I'm going to be the devil's advocate, okay? Let's just say, for instance, you know, time management, man. We want to sit down and write out a schedule and such, or, you know, or even just kind of chunk it out like I like to do, put it on my phone and such. You know, what about those days you just don't feel like fucking with it, man?
Now, are you talking about the days where you have scheduled things, or are you talking about the days where there's nothing there and you're like, do I work on it or not?
Let's look at both of those.
Okay, if it is a day where you haven't, let's say that it's a Saturday or it's a Sunday, which I have things scheduled on both days, but that's just because that's how I am. And they're pleasurable things, though, that I have scheduled, but they're scheduled nonetheless, because it frees up your guilt factors and everything else. Well, let's take the day where there isn't anything to do, and you're sitting there wondering what to do, and you've got the guilt factor weighing over you of, well, I don't work my 9 to 5 today, or I don't have business meetings scheduled today, but how much revenue could I bring in if I spent 5 hours doing this today? Personally, I think that you should take the time to just fucking recharge, because the fact that you're sitting there going, oh, the fact that you're doing that means that you need to breathe and recharge. You are now at the end of your, and I'm using the weekend as an example, and people's schedules are different, but people tend to have a certain pattern. And so if you're at the end of whatever you call your week and you're feeling that factor, you need to breathe, and you need to rebuild, and you need to charge that battery up, or else you're starting to cross that line from passion to obsession, and you're going to start hating what you do. And then you're going to start spending less and less time on it because you fucking hate the idea of doing it. So, in my opinion, on those days, if you want to do something and you want to put in some business time, then sit down, you know, pull up your website, do something that is part of your business, but not something that you spend a normal huge chunk of your time doing because it's going to seem like another work day. Do something you normally do. If you spend your 5 days out of the week writing, like I do a lot of the time, then go and work on your website or something like that. But as soon as you get to that point where you're like, oh my God, I'm working again, stop. You're done. You've hit your willpower max point for whatever it is that you're doing. Just be done. Move on. Spend some time doing nothing, because I think that people underestimate how much they get from doing absolutely nothing. Because even if they're not thinking about something actively, they're subconsciously thinking about all the problems that they had throughout the week and everything, and coming up with new ideas that are going to come to light later on. So get to what you're doing. If you want to put in some time, put in some time, but then as soon as you're starting to feel burnt, be done and enjoy the free time, because life was not designed to be spent working. I mean, we need to stop and smell the roses. Literally and truly, you need to stop and smell the roses. So there's option one. Now we'll get to the hard one, because the days where there's nothing to do, that's a pretty easy one. But the days where you wake up and you're just, I don't feel like doing it, that is the most important time to do it. And it's super cliche, and you'll hear it 1,000 different ways on the internet from this person and that person. And I haven't read it, but I'm sure that something like that is in the whole, 7 Habits of Highly Whatever People. It's all over there. But it's all, there you go. But it's all over the place because it's true. The day, and I'll use working out as an example, the days that you wake up and you're like, no alarm, no, I'm not doing it today, and you get up anyways and you go to the gym, every single time that you do that, it makes it easier next time. A, because of repetition and habit building, but this is kind of a human factor, but ego. If you said yes to doing something, whatever amount of days in a row, 7 days in a row, even though it fucking sucked, and then the 8th day comes along, and you've got every excuse in the world to not do it, your ego kicks in, and your ego goes, why is day 8 any different than day 1 through 7? I still have something that I'm supposed to be doing today. Why am I going to not do it again? And for me, it comes back to a point that I bring up a lot when I talk to people about scheduling their time and getting things done. Because just outside of coaching, I talk to a lot of people in personal life, and it comes back to there was a reason. There was a reason that you took the time to schedule out whatever it was that you're supposed to be doing right now that you're saying fuck it to. There was a reason it was important enough to you to do when you had the energy to schedule it, and it's just as important to you right now. And if it's really not, if it's really just not important to you and you're not just being a bitch, then you need to go back and you need to reschedule your priorities again. But if you are just being a bitch and you don't feel like doing something that day, that is when you absolutely 110% need to do it, because those are the character building days where later down the road you get to tell somebody, no, you just need to do it, and I promise you that you're doing it right now for a reason, and you're going to thank yourself later on. It builds so much more on the back end, doing things when you don't want to do them. I like what Les Brown says about it's really easy to be positive and get things done when things are great. It's when things suck and you're facing, and I'm paraphrasing just like you were earlier, but it's when things suck and they're hard, that's when it really counts. That's when the real growth happens.
Absolutely, and actually, I do know exactly what you're talking about, and I think actually even Muhammad Ali used to say when it came to his workouts, he never started counting his repetitions until he started burning. And
yep.
That kind of goes along with that point. You know, you got to get that shit. You know, while it sucks ass, man. I think this is something I coach some of the people that I work with in writing is every now and then, I say always, you set yourself a daily limit. Recognize that, Scott?
Yeah.
You got to at least have a minimum, a minimum, 500 words per day, 1,000 words per day, and no matter what, you got to sit down, you got to do it. Even if it seems like complete horse malarkey and fucking shit, you got to keep going, and don't even touch that delete or that backspace key, Kevin.
Kevin, that sounds familiar too.
Yeah, you got to call me out on that one.
Yeah, I say it in love, but I mean, because that's the thing is, trust me, man. I hit that backspace and delete key so many damn times, and I've got to constantly correct myself. And that's the thing is, you got to do the work when it fucking sucks. As much as you got to do it when it's great, okay? And when it's great, that's awesome, cool. 1,000 words will probably be nothing to you. 3,000 words will be nothing to you. But it's on those days you get up and you go, oh man. And I just say, nope. This is what I do. I brush my teeth. I work out. I bathe. I eat. I drink water, and I do 1,000 words per day. It's just habit. It's ingrained within me. And, of course, you said something beautiful is sometimes, when it's time to take the time off, it's time to take it off. So my question to you is this one. Sorry, Kevin. Dominated yet again. So
I can see him ramping up. It's going to be so good.
He's getting ready. He's like, got a good.
He's got the bat ready, and he's just like about to clock me.
He's sending me on Facebook. He's probably like, you son of a bitch, give me my turn.
All good, baby.
Yeah, he doesn't have that on there, folks. But at any rate, what about when some people get up and they're like that every fucking day? Like they just have had enough. What do they need to do?
So you mean they every single day they're waking up and they're looking at whatever it is that they've scheduled out and they're fucking hating it, and it's day after day after day?
Yep.
I would come back to, and I'm going to paraphrase again, I would come back to something that Steve Jobs said, and people beat the Steve Jobs horse to death. No disrespect, I know that he's dead. It was not what I'm talking about. But they take so many of his quotes and they just like beat him to death all the time. But one of them that I really liked was that if what you're doing today isn't what you would do if it was your last day, too many times in a row, because those days happen to everybody. They just do, period. I don't care. If they happen too many days in a row, you're not doing the right thing. If, and this is something that's really hard, I think, for some people, because they want to have that emotional payoff. And if they spent so much time putting money, time, and energy into something, and they figure out later on down the road that they fucking hate it, like people that spend 3 years into a 4-year degree at law school and then decide that they couldn't hate anything more in the world than to become a lawyer, it is really hard, and I think a really defining piece of character for somebody to be able to walk away and say, this just isn't for me. But you need to really examine a decision like that, because sometimes you just have a bad week. You could be the, and I'm sure that as a writer you've experienced this, you could be the one person on the planet out of everybody that was meant to be a writer, and there's going to be a week where you're just like, fuck this keyboard. No. No. I'm not putting down a single word. So I think that that's a really, really tough, I think that's a really tough thing. If you're hating what it is that you are doing every day, I think that on the most basic level, you need to really examine that and either A, figure out why it is that you're hating it, whether it's because you're doing it too much, or you're doing it the wrong way, or you're making it harder on yourself than it needs to be, or is it just not something that you should be doing? I think that you probably have, again, Dale, a lot of experience with this when it came to your pro wrestling. Eventually it gets to a point where, this just, maybe it was something that you loved, but this just isn't working anymore. A and B and C have come up, and I need to examine this situation, and maybe it's time to do something different. So I think that's a really tough thing for people to do. I think that you should be really hard on yourself in the best way. I think you should be your hardest critic, but you should also listen to what you're hearing yourself say to yourself, because that's a powerful dialogue. If you hate what you do every day, there's probably a really good reason why you hate what you're doing every day.
Yeah. It brings up a really good point, and I think it's so funny you brought up the whole wrestling thing. Is the reason why I had to step away from it was because of the physical damage it took on me, and I was requiring another back surgery. And though I was able to get clearance from the doctor without even having to do any kind of back surgery, I was faced with the reality that, was I willing to sacrifice my quality of life? Now let's just pretend like I did. I mean, where would I be at today? I'd probably be miserable. I could probably be dead. I could be paralyzed.
In a wheelchair.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes people don't realize. Let's say they're working a job at Walmart and they're completely miserable. I've got a good friend, one of my best friends in the world. He works at Walmart but can't fucking stand it. And it's so heartbreaking, because he's a brilliant individual. If he'd only realized that, dude, it's really easy. All you got to do is say, "Peace, I'm out of here," and then go find your opportunity. So find what makes you happy, because what happens tomorrow? I mean, you're going to get up, go back to that fucking job again?
Yeah.
Nothing against Walmart. I'm sure there's some people making a great living at Walmart. I'm sorry to always throw Walmart on the bus, but I've seen so many unhappy workers there. And, the ones that I see that are happy, those are the ones that are like the rare occasion. And I say, man, you're the shit right there, because you're doing something that you love. And, Walmart, if that's it, great. I mean, I had a cousin a number of years ago worked at the Dairy Queen. And man, that guy loved it. I mean, seriously, he loved it as much as I love writing, and probably more. And he took pride in it, and that was something that he loved, and that's really good. So if you're waking up and you're dreading going into work, man, I think Scott says it really well, man. Stop. You don't know if you got tomorrow. I mean, shit, you're gonna go to this crappy suck-ass job where your boss blows on a good day, and your coworkers suck on a normal day. Quit. Find another opportunity. And some people say, Dale, that's probably easier said than done. Hey guys, guess what? It's the 21st fucking century. Access to technology. You can create online businesses with the snap of the finger. In which, by the way,
literally,
a cheap plug here, bootstrapbusinessmen.com. On the blog, I talk about ways you can generate income without any investment. So Kevin wanted to know if I was an Upwork affiliate at one point, because I was like, I did one on Upwork. Which, have you had any experience on that yet, Scott?
I haven't had any. I've done all of my own writing, content production, all of it, mostly because of the great instruction from yourself and saying, no, Scott, just do your shit, okay? You can just do your shit. Don't pay for it until you absolutely have to. But until then, just do your own shit.
Yep. You could tell. You listen really well. I do like Upwork for the fact that actually they have good editors you can be able to hire. If you need to get a good copywriter, even something as simple as just getting a very brief one-time deal with the virtual assistant. So that's Upwork. But that's just another way of generating income. So if you're fearful that you're relying on your job, the crappy job, whether it be Walmart or Kroger's or Fry's or whatever you might be working at, if it's sucking, guess what? You're in the 21st century. Wake up! This isn't fucking horse and buggy anymore, guys.
Yeah.
If you have something you're passionate about, go fucking do it. That's the really cool thing. There's guys out there. All right, we had this discussion just last night. I'll say it again, Kevin. Isn't it fucking crazy? There are people that play video games, and they're called athletes. Yeah.
Blows my mind.
Yeah, and they're being paid big money, 6 figures, and sometimes even 7 figures a year from playing video games. When I was a kid, I was always led to believe that playing video games would get you fucking nothing. And now I'm looking at this, I'm like, you fuckers!
You lied to me!
Yeah, I could have been making some big fucking money right now. But, that actually gets trumped over, reading and writing. So, sadly, video games will come second. So, one day, I'm going to be a fucking video game athlete. You watch, Scott.
The athlete part is what throws me off.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hey, wait a minute. There's some endurance, though, because, I'm sure some of these games can go on forever. Holy crap.
Carpal tunnel injuries.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, this is such a valid point, and Dale, I love the fact that you say, this is a 21st century. Here's the situation, guys. If you're miserable going into your job, guess what you're miserable coming back into? Your life.
Yep.
So, that's the main thing. This, you can change that in 2 seconds. If you're unhappy, fucking walk out the doors, throw up the sails, burn the boats, whatever you want to say it, that can change. The problem is if you don't do that, the rest of your life is shit.
Yeah.
You're miserable, your spouse doesn't want to be around you, your kids, if you have family, whatever, they don't want to be around you, you're miserable, your energy's drained, yeah. So, I love the point that you said. It's the 21st century. You can pick up a cell phone. I saw an app today on a smartphone. You'll literally start a business from your smartphone.
Yep.
And I just want to throw a really quick additional piece into this. Part of it can also be attitude. And I'm going to try to be really quick on this part because I know that we spent a minute on it already. But, for example, I'm not being an entrepreneur because I hate the job that I have right now. I absolutely really, really, really like the job that I have right now. I love what I do. I love the service that I provide to people. I love the quality of work that I bring to the table. I love the people that I work with, and I love the people that we ultimately serve. But there was a time, and I've been working for them for over 4 years now, and there was a time where there was nothing that I dreaded more than going into work. And it took that self-examination of going, this is not a bad job. Why are you so miserable going into work every day? And so I would challenge people that, before you say, fuck you Walmart, or fuck you Dairy Queen, or what the hell it is, and just run out the door because you hated going to work that day, think about if it is just a mental shift that you need to have. Is it the fact that you aren't appreciating a damn thing and that you want more without having to work for it? And that you're just, bottom line, unappreciative for what it is that you've got. So I'll leave it at that, but look at the attitude of it. Maybe you just need an attitude adjustment, and maybe that job that you're at right now, maybe that's what you're actually going to be doing for the next 30 years, and nothing else is going to make you happier in the world than to do it, and all that it took was a mental shift.
Sure, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. I think the perspective that we were trying to, come at with this is if this is something that is every day. Um, I can honestly say I was a victim to that. It literally got to the point where the time I was away from my family, and building somebody else's dream literally almost made me sick in the morning. I just hated life. My wife was miserable when I got home. My daughter, you know what I mean? Everybody, even at work. And I'll tell you, Scott, and I'll be honest with you. Dale, you and I've talked about this before. I left a six-figure income, okay, and walked out. Just because money is not everything, I'm happy now, and I get to do what I want, and I work my ass off. So, yeah, I do agree that you need to evaluate things a little bit, but if it's every day that you wake up and you dread it, there's something that you have to make that change.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree. I agree totally.
Absolutely. It's great how we are attacking it from all angles, and I think attitude does make a huge difference because at my last job, I worked at Bethesda Gardens. I'm really happy to go ahead and just admit it right now. They were a wonderful, wonderful company, but there was a little bit there where I was very miserable. I just kind of it was almost like I wanted to leave, like I wanted to pursue my dream as a writer, but I needed a reason. It was almost like I need a reason. Yeah, screw these people. They're holding me back, and it was an attitude thing. And the thing is they babied me. They were great. They paid me well. They allowed me to do any hours I wanted to. Hell, they even promoted me to mentor for the company. And here I was going, oh, they're holding me back. No, they weren't holding me back. They actually were empowering me. And unfortunately, I think you're right. It actually, I hit my point where I realized that the way I was treating other people was disgusting. It was just not me, and it was a breaking point for me when I was with my assistant, and I wrote her up over just the most menial thing. It was stupid. It was dumb. And I wrote her up and I sat down with her and I had my boss come in and sit down with her. I was like, I think you're going to need to be here so that way I can kind of keep myself reined in. And he's like, okay, no problem. Well, when we were done with the meeting, she left. She was real cool about it. She signed her little write up uh, and my boss looks at me and says, is everything okay? And I was like, no, no, I don't know. I was like, what, is this not a good thing? He's like, well, you could have probably just told her she was an awful person because that's pretty much what you did. And I came down to the office and I saw my assistant and she looked like she was shaking and she was near tears. And I sat down next to her and I was like, did you want to discuss something any further? And she just said something to me that it for some reason made me realize that was like I wasn't being me. I was being, ungrateful, had a big attitude, I had the ego, oh, well, this place is holding me back. And here I was taken out on a beautiful individual. And she looked at me and she said, have grace, have grace. And, sometimes when you find yourself going, blaming this and blaming that, saying my job sucks, think of those two words, have grace,
yeah,
be thankful for what you got because whatever you got, you might be pretty lucky. There's somebody else out there that's panhandling on a street corner that legitimately needs that money so they can actually get food in their belly or, someplace to stay. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
perspective is
hmm
absolutely.
important.
So, yeah, when I shifted that perspective, man, I just, boom, I started accomplishing shit like a motherfucker at that work because I wasn't like, it was no longer a case of my work is holding me back. It was me. It was
Yeah.
me that was
yeah,
holding me back. And I was just like, you know what? I went in there and that's when I started really kicking ass. People were like, oh my God, you got a new energy about you. And I was able to eventually reconcile with my assistant and sit down with her and just express to her, hey, look, you were so fucking right. Actually, I didn't say fucking because she's a little older. And it'd be like saying that to my mom, You're so fucking right. I was like, you're so right. I was like, I want to appreciate, and I teared up a little bit, and I was able to kind of admit, look, I kind of became a little bit of an ugly brute, and there's no reason you should be working with Sweet Lou Roberts, the wrestler, when you should be working with Dale Roberts, the activities director. So it's a great point for us to kind of, start to wrap up on here. So Scott, we've had a lot of fun so far on the show. So how do people get a hold of you, and tell us about your book again?
The Gluten-Free Fitness book.
Yep.
Gluten-Free Fitness, bottom line, in a couple of short words, is a book of recipes, tend to be specific for a couple of different parts of the day, whether it be breakfast, lunch, or dinner, that allows you to have a high flavor, low calorie, and very satisfying meal, as well as several tips that I personally used myself over my 60-pound weight loss journey that are very simple and work really well. There's a reason that the book was not 1,000 pages long, and it's because losing weight and being able to eat delicious food is not a complicated process. It's just takes a little bit of willpower. It's a difference between simple and easy. So my book is a very simple description on how you can eat well, like what it is that you're eating, not feel like you're starving yourself, and still be able to lose the weight at the same time. And as far as contacting goes, I'm pretty much all over the place. You can find me on Instagram and on Twitter at doing better vlog. You can also find me on my website at scottjmarshall.com. You can find me on Facebook at scottjmarshall2, and that's II, not the number 2. I am genuinely a junior. You can also just, you can shoot me an email at scott@scottjmarshall.com. I'm really easy to get a hold of. I'm all over the place. If you want to talk to me about coaching, if you want to just chat and say, hey, what's up, dude, you're awesome, or dude, you suck at life and I hate you, whatever, just send me a message. I'm open to all of it. So
please don't send him that.
No, please don't.
Yeah, he's a good guy, and there's a good reason why we wanted to use him as a guinea pig for today's show. So, Kevin, do you got any last words before we disconnect? Because we really don't need to plug our show, because we're going to put a commercial at the beginning and one at the end, and people see on YouTube, they're just going to know that they're going to go to the show description in order to get all the zam, yam.
No, Scott, I just really appreciate this is the first time you and I have been face-to-face, technically. Yeah,
we figured out the virtual handshake earlier.
We figured it out, yes. So, really appreciate your time, and honestly, man, just your perspective on life, your daily life, sharing that, it's beautiful. It truly is, and you can tell that it comes from inside, and I just think that's amazing. So just thanks for coming on and sharing that with us.
Yeah, no problem. Honestly, it's always good to talk about it. It's nice to share with people that they can come out of whatever it is that they're in. It's also very self-affirming and reminds me of what I have done, and so it gives me strength again on the back end. I would just say for anybody that is in a bad situation, just without going into great detail, a little over a year ago, I was a total alcoholic, had an anger problem, was extremely overweight, was going nowhere, and in a year got all that stuff under control. I've started businesses now. I'm getting professionally paid to do these things, so I don't care if you're sitting there on the couch and you weigh 10,000 pounds and you hate yourself and you hate your life. If you're willing to put in some work, if you're willing to stick to it, if you're willing to be consistent, and just grind and be okay with the fact that it's going to take some work, but you will get there, then you can. You just got to be willing to put in that work and have faith in the fact that you can go from A to B and from B to C and from C to D, and then you're not going to go from A to D right at the beginning. You got to trust the process, and you've got to work at it.
Beautiful words to finish on. I really do appreciate, Scott, you popping in here. Well, hey, on the behalf of Bootstrap Businessmen, Dale, my good friend Kevin here, thank you very much for tuning in, folks, and make sure that you hit us up every Wednesday and Sunday at show.bootstrapbusinessmen.com. Once again, that's show.bootstrapbusinessmen.com. Very good, guys. Just a reminder, you can support the show by simply shopping at Amazon through the link in the show description. Every time you make a purchase through the provided link, a small percentage of sales goes back to support our show and cover overhead costs. And there's no additional cost to you, and it greatly helps us out. Simply go to the link, Bookmark it in your browser and do your shopping on Amazon at no extra cost to you while you support your two favorite podcast personalities, Bootstrap Businessmen.
Absolutely, Dale. And also, everybody, just as a reminder, you can follow us at Stitcher.com. Just type in Bootstrap Businessmen. It's going to, pull up all of our shows and episodes so you can listen to us there. Go to SoundCloud.com. Type in Bootstrap Businessmen. iTunes.com. And type in Bootstrap Businessmen. And you can follow us. You can download the podcast on your phone if you have an iPhone. Stitcher and SoundCloud both have an app that you can put on your phone so you never miss an episode.